First question, when and where were you born?
I was born in northern Italy, in the province of Imperia, and I was born in Imperia, is the city in Italy, northern Italy, in March 7, 1930.
Oh, your birthday wasn't so long ago. Yeah.
And we never have our own house. We always live, until I live in Italy, we live in an apartment with a room for me and one for my parents, one for my brother, younger brother, 2-year younger brother.
This was during the 1930s, of course.
Yes.
Did the Depression have any kind of effect on your lives?
I didn't know, I didn't feel it at all, the depression. It didn't affect me because I was too young to realize that was a depression time.
Right. Yeah, I suppose 1930, you would have been quite young at that time.
Yes. So it didn't affect me in any way, the depression that they had in Italy.
And what is your first language?
Italian.
Is it a certain dialect of Italian or just?
Yes, there is many dialects. In every province in Italy, they have a different dialect that is spoken by at least 3/4 of the people, not the dialect, but the national language is Italian.
Okay.
And you're supposed to be educated, you have to learn the Italian in school, the real Italian, not the dialect.
What are some vivid memories you have of childhood that in some way that, I don't know, that define your childhood that still are with you after all these years?
No, not too much.
No,
not really.
What about your grandmother?
Yeah, but Elizabeth noticed that I went to see my grandparents. They didn't live, they live in the same province, but in another town. And in the summer, I went few times to stay with them for a week or something like that, or 10 days with them, but I always come back home. But I didn't go very early then either. I would have been about 7 or 8 when I went there. Yes. Yeah. Sometimes I went with my grandmother in the forest, and she didn't have an electric stove, but she had a stove where you can put branches, small branches, and she would cook the meal in that stove. She didn't have an electric or gas stove. She did it with those branches of tree, dry branches that she collected while she went to the forest. And also in the forest, we could pick figs, wild figs, and in the fall we get walnut, hazelnuts, and chestnuts, and mushrooms. Yes, they live very simple than people. They didn't have cars, and the car came very slowly. I barely remember when I was young, they start to come more and more the car, but before people walk in every place, all family equal. They didn't, only transportation would be the train or the bus or the city bus, but no other transportation.
The people didn't have cars. Most people didn't have cars.
No, most people no people have cars, none.
What was the
There were horse and buggy that you could take for pleasure. Mostly the tourists would take them, but not the people in the town. They walk all over the place.
They must have been very healthy.
Very healthy, yes.
What can you tell me about your parents?
My parents, my dad, he was a postmaster. He had a pretty good job, not to get wealthy or anything, but we had enough to live comfortably. And and my mother, she was a homemaker, and she keep the house, and she cook, and she go shopping, and she never have a job outside the house, because women at that time, they didn't have a job. Just the men, most of the time men went down. Very few women have jobs outside the house.
Mm.
We live very much simpler than now. We have the necessity of life, like we have, everything more or less, like, but not so abundant and so common like it is today. Lots of people wouldn't have a bathtub or a toilet, or the toilet, yeah, but not even a bathtub. They would improvise something to get washed somehow,
Mm.
not even a shower. So
Mm.
people, they were live much more simple, all the way, very, very more primitive.
It sounds like a happy childhood.
Very happy, very simple. I had, I was never hungry or thirsty or it was simple. And like I say, we walk and all the place to visit a relative. We walk to go shopping. We walk. We go shopping. Everything. We walk and walk all the time. But it was a simple life comparing to today that we have all those electronic thing, computer and TV.
Where did you go to school? Tell me about your school life in Italy.
Mhm. I went to Italy, to school in Italy in grade 1 when I was 6 years old. And in Italy, the elementary would start from grade 1 to grade 5. And then after that would be secondary school. And they split the student. The very smart would go to a place called the Liceo. And the people, they were too smart, they go to a school, they call them aviamento, to leading to a job. And there he would learn to be a secretary, a plumber, um, a bricklayer. And in the liceo, they would go, people who are smarter, and they would go and become doctor, engineers, and that way it was subdivided that way. I did 5 years of elementary, and then I did 5 years of secondary school, and then the 9th year, my school was bombed by an airplane that destroyed the school completely, and I couldn't go to school. We went to shelter.
Yes.
There were shelter underground that we would go, and lots of people would stay there. They were so scared of the bomb. I have an aunt, she practically lived there, on the bank in those underground shelter that the bomb wouldn't touch them.
Wow, I didn't know about your school being bombed.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Did that cause? I mean, that interrupted your education.
Yes.
Did it interrupt it significantly? Did your education stop there, or what
Yes,
happened?
after 1943, there was no more education, most bombs. They were always bombing from the sea and from the air in Italy. Not only from the air, but lots from the sea. Also,
Oh,
they would shoot the town, yes, with bombs,
I guess this was the Americans attacking.
probably, or British, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, yes, because the Italian was allied with the German, and that's the way it was at that time. So our enemy were at that time the English, of course, and the American after Roosevelt agreed to help the English. So, and then the Canadians also were in Italy fighting with the ally. They call the ally would be the American, the Canadian, the Australian, the New Zealander, and English.
Did you meet any of these foreign soldiers?
Not until after the war. You know, in 1945, after they surrendered, they would come to our town, you know, with the jeep, and were soldiers, American soldier. Yes, I met some of them. Yeah. And I met some German too. You know, German, they were posted in Italy as well. You know,
when you were younger, you met some of the German soldiers.
Yes, yes. And, you know, they sound very, I feel that I felt that sorry for them because they were losing big weight. After the American came in, they didn't have too much chance anymore. To, yeah. It was an interesting time.
Certainly. You say your mother was a homemaker, but was your father involved in the war in any way?
My dad, he went in the Second World War. He volunteered to go to Africa, North Africa. He was in charge.
Sorry.
Oh no, that's okay. No problem.
You were saying that your father was
Yeah, he went to war. He was interested in politics and that, you know, he volunteered to go to North Africa, and yeah, and he was in Elder Alalamai, that's in North Africa. He was postmaster and he paid the soldiers too. His office, not him, but his office under him paid the soldiers whatever it came to them. And they did the mail and the telegrams, not him, but the staff. Yeah, few staff, just, yeah.
I see.
And he was a first lieutenant in the army.
He had an actual rank. Okay.
Yeah.
You talk about school. Like, did girls and women have different opportunities in their education relative to?
Yeah, more or less the same. You know, really, if there were some very few women, they were very more than average intelligence, and they didn't get married too soon and pursue a career like a lawyer or a doctor. But the majority, the family were expect the daughter to be married and have children. That was the orientation of that time that they gave to the girl. Don't go in public life and carry important position, because the men did most of them at that time, and the women were much less educated and more oriented to become an housewife and have a family.
They received the pressure from their parents, and as a result,
a pressure, but the general expectation of the community, not only in the church, and you know, the community, and being the Italian Catholic, mostly Catholic country, that had a very big impact on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Lots of questions. Now, tell me about how you ended up in Smithers.
That's a good story. That was about in 1948, after the war. some people start to come to Italy on holiday, like English and Swiss, Swiss, people they could afford it mainly. They would come for holiday in where I live, because where I live, we have the sea and we have never cold winter, very mild winter, no snow, no cold, no ice. And people would come on holiday for swimming in the summer and in the winter because it was mild. Anyway, and one time my brother with my cousin, they were at the beach. And beside them, there were two men, and they started to talk to each other. And no, both of them were Swiss, German Swiss, from Lucerne, Switzerland. And my brother talked with them, and then, they say goodbye. And one day I was having a promenade. On the promenade, I went with my dad and my brother, and we walked. And then all at once, they see those people, they met, my brother see those people he met at the beach. So he say hi, and they say hi to him, and they were close. And then he say, oh, that's the man I met. We met at the beach. And then he said, my sister and my dad, they introduced us to this Swiss. And one was my future husband, Walter. And he kind of liked me from the beginning, and he became friendly with my family. And eventually, he always say he would like to go be a farmer in another country. And he told me that he was told by other Swiss people that Canada, the West, would be an ideal place because they have mountains and there is snow and cold weather, like in Switzerland. So my husband thought that would have been a good idea. So, and he thought he would like to emigrate. And then he told me if I would come and marry him, and I think I would. My dad say he liked him because he become kind of friend of the family, and some people, he made inquiry, and he find out he was a good person from a good family. So my dad was very much in favor that I married him.
Mm.
And that
are you saying that did he propose to you by mail or in person?
Oh, he told me already before a little bit. He want to know if it would be possible to make an existence or a living in Smithers, where we end up to be in Smithers, British Columbia. And he came first by himself to make sure. And he thought it's very cold, but otherwise everything would be okay. And he wrote me if I like to come, because they had the dairy, we bought the dairy farmer, and there was lots of work to be done too, fill the bottle, wash the bottle, and things like that. And he needs somebody for the house and everything. So I came.
And so I guess you married him here then.
Yes, I married in here, and all the people in all the Swiss in Smithers, they did everything for the wedding, the banquet, the dress, the party. They were so helpful. All the Swiss helped to get us established. Yes, they were wonderful. The immigrants from Switzerland, they were already here from before. There were different times that the Swiss emigrate to Canada. So there were quite a few family in Smithers too.
That it arrived earlier than in the 20th
Much
century.
earlier, yes. Yeah, way before the war too. In the 30, in the 40, yes. They immigrated already to Smithers earlier.
Right.
Yes. And they were very proud to help another Swiss. It was a very close community. of the Swiss. And yes.
What was Smithers like when you arrived?
I came, I don't know if the Italian Riviera is very developed because it's very touristic or tourist. Lots of tourists go there. They have in an apartment. They always have in the shower and the toilet and all the commodity of the time. And toward the end, even the telephone was already something different. But anyway, we had that too later. And when I came to Smithers, Walter, my husband, came and picked me up at the railroad station. And when I came out, it was okay. And then when he took his truck to drive home, in the main street, the road was no paved, there was no pavement. Also, there were ditches in both sides of the sidewalk, and the sidewalk were made with wood planks, and was very primitive, and most people didn't even have a bathroom in the house. They just have outhouses, they call them, outhouses. Yes, and my husband, he decided before I came to put a toilet in our house and also a bathtub, but at that time he couldn't buy a good bathtub. The only one they sold in 1930 were the galvanized tub. And then Walter, to make it even more nice, even paint the bathtub white. The only thing, the fresh paint wasn't dry. When I tried to have a bath, I got all white on my back because the paint was still taken on my skin. So that make the kids, make them laugh about that, I'm sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I was an experience, and I didn't know too much. And my husband, he was 32. He was 12 years older than me. But, he always stayed home and worked in an office. We were really quite helpless, and we were thankful to the neighbor and the Swiss and the Canadian people. They always were very nice with us and help us out in many ways.
Tell me about your working life. I know that Walter was intending to travel to Canada to become a farmer. What did you do for work, yourself and him?
Most of the time, Walter, he did for quite a few years. We did dairy farming. We have milk about 18 cows. And we have a machine for the milking machine that you suck it to the tits of the cow and you can get the milk. But now they have it all different. Now they're very more, even in Smith, they are fantastic new way to milk cow. But when we did it, it was quite simple, just the machine to get the milk, and then they standing and they drop their stuff in the floor in the down. We have to clean it off and things. But we always have somebody to help. Usually a Dutch. Then the Dutch start to come. In the beginning, it was very hard to get good help. But when the Dutch people from Holland start to emigrate, then we could get good help. And Walter could take it a bit easier than he did before.
Yes.
The
he
majority
didn't have to do
of the,
as much of the labor.
Yeah, he didn't have to do totally all the labor, right? I even tried to milk myself, but just for help out because I don't really know too much. And I just had to help a little bit if you have no help. He had some people to help, but they weren't good, they drank, and then he had to let them go and things like that. But then the Dutch were very good workers, and they did their job properly, and we had a better time when we had them to work for us.
And of course, you brought up a family here in Smithers.
Yeah, then I get pregnant, and yes, after maybe about that, after 7 months I was in Smithers, I got pregnant with my first child in 52.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I
How?
got pregnant. Yeah. And then, yes, and then we keep going with the dairy and everything. And then I got pregnant again 3 years later. And I got, a girl was born, and keep going. And then another one came after 3 years again. And then after 5 years, another boy. And beside that, most of the time I stay home. But then my husband, because we live in a highway 16, that's the main road in the north. And my husband, because milking cow and things like that was not very easy and not profitable. And so my husband decided to build a trailer court and a motel. And then we ran a motel. But the first year when we built a motel, we didn't do too well. We didn't have too much experience and don't know how to do it. And we didn't do too well. And I was worried that we wouldn't make it. And so I knew the nun that they ran the Catholic hospital in Smithers, and I became friend with them, and they were very short of help. And then they asked me if I would be able to help to do nursing, and they would train me to do different things like tests and things. So then in the winter, where was hardly nothing to do, the kids were already older a little bit to help. I did go work for a while as a nurse's aide, and I worked at Baptist Valley District Hospital for the rest of so many years. Actually, I worked there for 24 years, but I didn't go all the time. In summer, I had to stay home and help in the motel, and they let me. They take me whenever I could go.
Right. Is this the same hotel that's behind Smithers Secondary today?
Yes. And the field in the secondary, that nice field where is that the track for the sport, that used to be one of our farm fields.
That's funny.
You know?
Yeah, I knew that. I think most of the students at Smithers Secondary probably don't.
Yes.
And the trailer court was the same trailer court that's by the highway as well.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That you and Walter
we start with 12 trailers and we end up with 60.
Mm-hmm.
And then the motel become quite busy, because at that time when Americans want to go to Alaska, there wasn't a boat that go from Vancouver to Alaska like it is today. They have to come through up to the north through Prince George and turn west to come to Prince George, turn west and come to Smithers and go to Prince Rupert to take the boat that took them to Alaska. And many, many Americans did that, come. But now the boat goes from Vancouver. They don't do the same route anymore. But at our time, when we had the motel, we were very busy in summer.
I see. One last question, Noni. How has Smithers changed since you arrived in 1950?
When I came in 1950, I no sure official how many would people live there. I would say between 700 to 900. But now, in the last census, I think it just in the town, within the town, is 5,400, something like that. No counting the area, adjacent to Smithers, that is quite large. And that include, Morristown, because they don't have a Morris, and Telpa. Well, Telpa have their own municipality, but the population of the Balpi Valley, including the farmers, and now there is many large ranch property that they have 200 beef and things like that. At that time, nobody have so many cattle, no.
Mm.
But now Smithers has grown a lot since the beginning. Now there is a swimming pool, and we always have an airport for going to Vancouver and then to other destination when you want. And we have a nice swimming pool, and we even have a CAT scan at the hospital because a resident of Smithers, he didn't have any children. And when he died, he left around 2 million Canadian dollars to buy a CAT scan. And now we have a CAT scan in the hospital, which is a big help to the health of the people.
Yes.
And my grandson is a nurse at the Barkley Valley Hospital now. His name is Stephen, and he's tried very hard to get 2 or 3 surgeons because he thinks it's so necessary for the health of the people, because they all have to be transferred to Prince George or to Terre, and sometimes people, they could die in that period, and he think they desperately, they looking for some surgeon to come to Smithers. Yeah.
A lot of changes. Yeah, something like almost 10 times the number of people. Yes.
Yes, a big changes. It's not a big town, but there is most of the necessity we need. Like the swimming pool is nice, and we have lots of good store, and we have all the few good grocery store, and we have everything, the bakery and everything that, we can live comfortable like that, but would be nice if it would be more medical help in some sort of more doctor and
even
more,
after all these years, Smithers still is still a bit of a small town, so we have a long way to go.
It's still a little bit, yeah. Especially when it comes to medicine, like doctor. Otherwise, it is a nice town to live, but is sometimes we have to travel, long way to get some specialty, and it's very hard. But they seem to manage somehow, and that's about it. Otherwise, the town is very nice, and especially when I came, it was even nicer because they were mostly pioneer people. They were very good.
Okay. Those are all the questions I had to ask you there, Noni. So thanks very much, and I'll be in touch about using the video.
Sure, that would be anytime I can help you. I'm glad to do it.